kindness and goodness. But we are new to these qualities, and therefore we practice them only out of necessity. Because I want to be happy, therefore I want to do something useful to you. That means happiness is given and taken. This is what is called the trade or commerce of goodness. So we begin to trade with our virtues and lead some thousands of lives. Again we are disappointed and we meet with greater sorrow. Because if I do something good to you in expectation of something from you, suppose you deceive me, there is only grief. See, in this world, husband deceives wife and wife deceives husband. And the fellows live in sorrow and grief. This is because virtues are marketed in the stage of personality. So once again, life is understood as great pain, suffering and sorrow. And then experience teaches us that we have to make an approach to the real I am. Then automatically there is the breaking up of another egg and we come out as the bird once again. And this is called soul. So from personality consciousness we enter into soul consciousness. This is the highest state of existence that a human being can understand. Because there is no disappointment in this state of existence. There is no sorrow and suffering. Man exists in constant joy and happiness. Because there is no state of expecting anything from anyone. Because you are with the Lord, you are like a Lord. When you are with the Lord, you are like a Lord. What is the nature of Lord? When you call a fellow a Lord, if he expects anything from anyone, you cannot call him a Lord. He is a weak fellow and a servant who expects anything from anyone. Even love, he gives only, he never expects. That's why he is not disappointed. That's why he is the Lord. And you are a Lord when you are with him. Because you know how to give love to others. And you have no mind to expect love from others. You know how to give happiness to others. And you have no nature to expect happiness from others. Because you are already happy, no one need give you happiness. When happiness is a light that shines from within yourself, how can anyone give you happiness? Can you give light to the flame? Because flame gives out light. You cannot give some light into the flame. Can you supply light to the sun? That is the nature of the I am in you. And nothing can be supplied to you when you are a yogi. And a yogi needs nothing from anyone and expects nothing from anyone. And when you want to become a yogi, an already existing yogi should be there by your side. A yogi can make you a yogi. Just as a magnet can make an iron piece into a magnet. And what you require is the presence of a yogi. Such a fellow is called, that is, a teacher who is a spiritual master. How can we know he is a real guru or a false guru? We can never know. because he knows us and we does not know him. We do not know him. Just as the doctor can know a patient, and just as a patient cannot know who is a real doctor, always a guru knows, and no one can know who his guru is. We will consider about this a little later, and we should remember that we want a guru, and if someone gives you yoga and if he expects you something from you, immediately you can understand that he is not guru. You cannot know a guru, but you can know a person who is not a guru. Suppose I teach you yoga, and I expect a big amount of money from you. Immediately you can be sure that I am a false guru. That is the first test to know who is not a guru. Whereas there is no test to know who is a guru. The guru should know us. But at the same time, we are not expected to hate anyone in this world. If someone wants to give you yoga and he wants some money from you, you can be kind to him because the poor fellow wants some money. You can help him, but you can understand that he is not your guru. But treat him as a guru, because in the heart of everyone there is the guru, real guru. This should be your attitude if you want to have real yoga for yourself. And now about the practice of yoga. Patanjali gives us the aphorisms which teaches the practice of yoga. First aphorism, he says, I am going to give you the instructions of yoga practice. So he gives us only practical instructions and not at all any discourses or philosophy. Some people have wrongly translated the first aphorism as a discourse on yoga, but it is not discourse. Patanjali gives us what he calls Anushasana. Anushasana means instruction. It is sometimes translated as discourse, but it is not correct. And in the second aphorism, he defines what yoga is. The definition is like this. Yoga is to suspend. This is the definition of yoga given by Patanjali. The mind and the senses put together are called chitta in Sanskrit. And the reactive nature is called vritti in Sanskrit. So, the vritti of chitta is suspended. And he teaches us how to suspend this. That is, how to suspend the activity of the senses and mind. And then he says, what happens when we suspend this? In the third aphorism, he teaches us what happens when we suspend this. He says, then the indweller lives in his original state. That is, the indweller lives in his loved state. This is what happens when your practice of yoga is completed. If not, what happens? That is what he gives in the next aphorism, that is fourth aphorism. He says, if not practiced, he lives as the activity of his reaction. So you have no original existence in that state. You have only the existence of your activity. That is, suppose when I am looking at the light, I exist only in the form of light in my mind. not in my form, and I am listening to his voice, I exist only in the form of voice and not myself. So, to stop this and to have the original state of existence is the purpose of yoga practice. And when we begin to practice it, we begin to live as ourselves. Then, how to practice it? Two activities should be introduced. Neutralize the reactive activity. The first thing to introduce is repeatedly propose the Lord consciousness in you. That is, you should propose that the I am in the mind should go to the I am in the heart. You should propose that you should live with the Lord in the heart. Not enough. It's not enough. Repeat the proposal. You should repeat the proposal not in your mind and thought, but in every incident of your daily life. Whatever you do, you should do to make the Lord felt by you. So, there should be a constant proposal of Lord consciousness in you. Unless we have a continuous taste for better living, a continuous taste for Lord consciousness, there is no yoga practice. So, this is the first thing we have to practice. In Sanskrit, it is called abhyasa. Sometimes it is wrongly translated as repetition. As practice. The meaning of the word is repetition and not practice. So, you should repeatedly apply the mind to the Lord consciousness. The Lord consciousness in everyone around you. And the second thing, grow passive to environment. This is the second thing to practice. Take care not to avoid your duties. Growing passive to environment never means avoiding what we have to do. But withdrawing our attitude from our work. You should do what you have to do, but you should not think anything of it, except being happy. I will give you an example. Suppose there is an aeroplane in Brussels by 4:30 p.m. Two people have to take the flight to London. One fellow begins to take the journey even from the morning itself. That is, mentally he begins to travel from morning itself. He wants that everyone should take care of his journey. 10 times he telephones to his personal secretary if everything is ready or not. And he asks his wife if she has made everything ready for his journey. And at about 11 o'clock, he sits at lunch, but he cannot eat because he is mentally in a great hurry to take the journey. Journey conditioned, nervous, and living in hypertension because there is a journey. So, everything to him is only journey. he has to catch the flight by 4:30, but he cannot eat at 11. Another fellow who wants to catch the same flight, he is normally attending all his duties, and he has an appointment with a friend by 3:30 p.m. Goes there and talks to him and gives him program, and then physically he goes to the airport. Mentally he never travels. Physically he goes and places his body in the aeroplane and the body takes the journey, whereas the mind never takes any journey at all. So he automatically gets down in London, and he never feels that he left Brussels and he reached London. And every minute he does what he has to do and comes back home. He has not traveled at all. This is what is called growing passive to environment. With every activity in our daily life, we have to grow passive. This is called in Sanskrit Vairagya. Sometimes it is wrongly understood as abandoning one's own people and going away into forests or retreats. But that is a negative way of understanding a positive virtue. Passive activity or vairagya is mental and not physical. And he has no business to physically go away from people. There is one little story in the scriptures about vairagya. A disciple was having his own old sick mother, and he began to practice yoga with his gurus. And when the guru asked the disciple to practice vairagya, then the disciple asked, "Master, shall I leave my mother and go away?" And the guru asked, "Why?" And the disciple said, "My mother has great attachment to me. And attachment is something very bad. We want to practice vairagya, there should be no attachment with anyone. So I want to go away into the forests and practice yoga." And then the guru explained, if your mother has great attachment to you, what is it to you? It is your attachment that is to be cured and not the attachment of your mother. And you are in no way concerned with the attachment of your mother. And it is she who is concerned with her attachment. And when she wants to practice yoga, she has to take care of her attachment. Now you are the patient and you want the remedy and not your mother. Therefore, take care not to abandon your mother. Then the disciple asked, "It is to see God presence everywhere that I want to practice yoga and go to the forest." Then the teacher said, "If you want to practice God presence everywhere, you want to leave away your mother. That means you want to practice only mother presence in your mother and not God presence. If you have God presence in mother also, you would have seen God in mother also, not mother. Just as you can see God in everyone, you can see God in your mother also. And if you are very particular of leaving away your mother and running, that means you are having only mother consciousness in your mother and not God consciousness. You should neither weep when your mother dies, and nor you should try to escape from your mother. Grow passive. See only God in everyone and stop seeing your mother in her. To practice this, you should serve her. She is one of the forms of God that are presented to you to cure you of your psychological diseases. And if you want to escape from her, you should die in faithlessness. You will be one among those who have abandoned the loved ones. And a faithless fellow will be rejected by God, never accepted by God. And as long as your practice needs her, she will live. The moment the God presence practice is complete in you, then immediately she quits the world. Because the Lord presents in the form of husband, wife, mother, father, etc. And he assumes the characters of many people like a drama. And he serves the purpose of God practice in you. The moment the purpose is finished, the character makes its exit. So try to see God in your mother. Stop seeing your mother. Then he began to practice. And after some time, he saw 20% God and 80% mother. Afterwards, he saw 50% mother and 50% God. Then 90% God and 10% mother. When it is 100% God, and when there is no mother in her, in his point of view, immediately she had a snake bite and died before him. And he was seeing the whole situation. He was never worried. As soon as he saw that she died, he conducted the funeral functions carefully and then began to see God in everyone. Because God existed with him in the form of his mother to give him a practice and to eliminate the timidity and the sense of escape from his mind. He existed as sickness in his mother. This is one of the stories in the scriptures called Bhagavatam. And we should understand growing passive to environment in the right sense. This is also called detachment. Mentally detached from everything. And physically, you have no business to go away from anyone in this world. These are the two things that you have to practice at first. Detachment includes another aspect also. That is, there should be no curiosity in our mind. Suppose you are practicing yoga under a guru. You will meet another fellow practicing yoga under another guru. He speaks much of his guru and he says his guru can do miracles. You are not expected to wind up your activity with the old guru and go to the new guru. And again, after 6 months or 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, now let us try Hatha Yoga. Let us stop the present one. And then try for 1 year Hatha Yoga with a Hatha Yoga guru. And then let us try Bhaja Yoga for 2 years. And then let us try transcendental meditation for 1 year. And then let us try Bhagavan Rajneesh for half a year. And let us try Krishnamurti for 1 year. And then for 1 year Sri Aurobindo. In the meanwhile, the fellow goes to grave because he has grown old. But he is as he was in the beginning. He has no progress in his spiritual path at all. Because he is running from place to place and he has not reached his destination. Poor fellow died. So, detachment requires continuity of purpose. A great mental disease called curiosity should be controlled. Curiosity to know what is there, to know what you are doing, to know what you are speaking. If two people are laughing and speaking, some people suspect it is only about himself. Prying nature should go away. These are the two aspects which we are expected to practice in the beginning. So, practice Abhyasa and Vairagya. Then the yoga practice starts. And then examine your own nature. See what attracts you. Begin to think of it. And think of it only. Whether it is good or bad, it leads you to a good path. Among the fine arts, you see which fine art attracts you. If it is music, practice your yoga through music. If it is painting, practice your yoga through painting. There are many methods to make yourself an approach to the Lord consciousness. If color consciousness helps you, be an artist. If sound consciousness helps you, be a musician. Like that, you can use all the five senses. And a positive use of all the five senses to practice yoga, the technique of Tantra. Unfortunately, in the Occident, this is understood as a beastly aspect. There are beasts who understood Tantra as something of sex. But it is only a better use of the activities of the five senses to reach the goal, that is to reach the Lord consciousness. One is expected to lead a life of perfect celibacy until he completes his 21st year, whether male or female. In the meanwhile, practice yoga and then select your mate in life and marry. And then learn the technique of Tantra, and with the sex life between husband and wife, the practice of yoga reaches perfection. And then beget a child who is a future yogi with that perfection. This is what the Tantras teaches. Only under those conditions, sex life gives us perfection of yoga. That is only to a male or female who lives in perfect celibacy until 21 years and leads a yogic life before that age, and then makes an ideal marriage for a life of monogamy. Then only to those people only sex life gives a perfection of yogic consciousness, and not to every pig and dog of sex. But there are many books written very bad about sex in the Occident. It is unfortunate for those people who read those books. Now, yoga practice never prohibits married life, but everything regulated. Everything has its own application away from wrong application. So, you can make use of any one of the activities of the